Hi, everybody. This is Kathy Castle. I'm coming to you today to give you a recap of our Eastern Shore talk group from last night. And our topic of the evening was trauma. And trauma is a topic that is sometimes hard to talk about, but a lot of people, I would argue that everybody has had some kind of trauma journey in their lifetime. We did have a special guest last night, and that was Alicia Salisbury. Alicia is a seasoned clinician in our community and has a lot of training and experience in trauma work for the community. So we were very appreciative of Alicia coming to spend her rainy evening with us last night. And we had a combination of both in-person meeting. People were at our in-person meeting and some were online joining the group. We offer it both ways. So if you're interested in the future, you know that you could have some choices. So it wasn't just to let you know, our groups are not therapy. So it isn't, they're more education, informative. Every road we take leads back to self-care. It's definitely a peer supportive type of group that we hold. The environment is very supportive of one another. But when we're talking about trauma, I think it's fair to say that that word is very much used today in today's society. We're more familiar with it than ever. But in my mind, trauma is defined by the person, perhaps, and could be a lot of different things. It could be that someone has experienced trauma as a child, and maybe it comes in the form of living in poverty or having a sexual trauma. It could be that you survived a devastating hurricane or tornado, a weather event. It could be that you've seen an accident or been in a traumatic accident, or maybe even something has happened to you or one of your family members. So trauma is defined very different by the person who's experiencing it. It could be a lot of different things, and the continuum, as you know or can imagine, is very broad and very wide. And I think an important message that we got out of last night when talking to Alicia is that we don't have to be defined by our trauma experience. We don't have to become that trauma. Just say you were a victim of a weather event. You know, it doesn't have to be who you are for eternity, you know, and people have experienced a lot of loss from severe weather events. You know, you think of hurricanes in the South, maybe Katrina, we talked about that last night. We even talked about events like 9/11 and how horrible that was for New York and for us as a country, and how to bounce back from those things, and how important connection and support is to people when they're going through trauma experience. But again, we don't have to be defined by our traumas. We're all on a life journey, as you know. We all have a journey. We all have a different story to tell. But the important thing is to be able to talk with somebody, and to be, you know, some people require therapy and some years of therapy. And some people have a trauma history that literally doesn't impact them the way you would think it would. Alicia spoke about the ACEs questionnaire, and you can certainly look that up online, ACE, apostrophe S. The questionnaire is about adverse childhood experiences, and there's 10 questions. It's a tool that a lot of therapists use, and it's information. You know, it doesn't mean that if you score high on the ACEs that your life is going to be this path. It's just information. So if you do take it and look at it, I would caution you to use it as a tool to be helpful to you. Like, oh yeah, you know what? I did have X, Y, and Z, and maybe that does impact me. I know that when Jay and I do hold these groups, childhood experiences continually surface. Someone brought up a shared experience that a couple of us in the group actually shared, that in high school we lost two classmates in our junior year of high school, and this classmate brought up how she didn't realize, you know, how much that affected her. And then maybe back in the day when this happened, there wasn't as much processing as a collective processing as a community or a school system as there would be today. Thankfully, seems like there is a lot more debriefing when outcomes happen that aren't positive. So, but things from childhood come up, and with that said, we also noted that um, everything doesn't have to happen to you prior to the age of 18. You can have a really wonderful childhood, and at age 19, you maybe a chronic health condition happened to you, or maybe there was a significant loss of a family member. So it wasn't until that age that your life started to take a different turn. The message that I'm just trying to say is that trauma is part of our society. It's part of our journey, and what is important is that you come to terms with it and you talk about it and find ways to care for yourself as you're moving forward. And we're all in different stages of acceptance and moving on. We did talk about some hard statistics last night. We talked about sexual offenses, and that 1 in 5 women in their lifetime will be sexually assaulted, and 1 in 6 men. And that 90% of those sexually assaulted do know who the person is, that they were somebody that they trusted. So that's a hard statistic, but it is fact. And we also talked about the suicide rates, and how it's really hard to detect sometimes, and we can have some guilt when someone does take their life by their own hands, and is there something we could have done, or was it something we said? And these are just hard topics, and there is definitely trauma responses based on some of these incidents and others. Alicia brought up a really interesting way to look at treating trauma, and I like this term. She explained how in COVID times we've come very used to the term universal precautions, like I have hand sanitizer right here. We're using hand sanitizer. We're being careful of maybe not sneezing or coughing in our hand and using our elbow, or staying away from people who are sick. We're definitely trying to use universal precautions more so. And she suggested that really we try to use universal precautions with trauma. And what that looks like is this. We'd never know what's going on with people. Somebody can hide behind their smile, or even hide behind their anger. It could be anything. They could still have a lot going on. So the important things, this is not rocket science, you guys, is to know that everybody has a story, to be kind to people. That's the best 4-letter word probably that we can give you advice with. Meet people where they are. Everybody, we may be further in our journey than someone else. So just remember that. Know that trauma is very disempowering to the person who's experiencing it. There's been trust issues that have been affected and taken away from people. Hurt people hurt other people. So know that just because somebody seems like they're a horrible human, maybe they've also been hurt. We have to keep that to think about that. I'm trying to look at my notes, so I apologize for looking down. Here's another thing she reminded us. When we're talking to people, ask them if we're in a serious conversation and we're being, that friend that's listening to their story, ask them what happened to them and not what's wrong with you. I had to really think about that for a minute. What's wrong? We quickly want to say, what's wrong? What happened to you? And Alicia said she finds a lot of times that people open up a lot more and don't, feel like something's wrong with them when you say, what happened to you? Something to keep in mind. And then I'm going to end with this. All roads lead back to self-care, and that's a big part of what our group is about. So even with trauma that has happened in your life or somebody that you care about's life, self-care is the key. So as you will see on the website, on the Facebook page, and any of our resource links that we give to you if you're part of Let's Talk, we talk about self-care. Mindfulness is a big piece. Mindfulness is huge. What do you need to ground you? You know, is it deep breathing? Is it box breathing? You know, where you from the bottom of your belly, you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds. I can't speak today. You blow out. I prefer through the mouth, but others prefer through the nose for 4 seconds, and then you rest for 4 seconds, and then you continue to do that. That has a lot of health benefits, the deep breathing. Mindfulness apps. I personally like the app Headspace. You can check that out. Movement, Alicia remind us how important movement is, meaning, you know, if someone's really struggling, get up, walk. Nature, I love to talk about nature. If you can get outside, take a walk. I know right now it's not the best time to be outside because it's cold or the weather is just not cooperating, but you know, there are places that you can walk, or even if you visualize something, if you're looking at, you have that picture in your office or your home, that's, I'm looking at one right now in my office, it's a palm tree. Palm trees are so healing to me. You know, Alicia called these things joy snacks. I'd never heard that term before, but what are things that give you joy? I can name lots for myself. For example, I know hot tea will make me happy anytime. A good 80s song. I do have a connection with my palm trees. I love Snoopy for some reason. I love the color purple. I can smile thinking about those things. So think about what can kind of flip your mood, you know. And I spoke last night about our brains and how we are Velcro to negativity and Teflon to positivity. That is neuroscience. That is a fact. So, you know, it takes a lot of work from us to not hold on to the negative. We remember the negative all the time. You know, think about an evaluation that you've gotten or a test that you've taken. We focus on what we did wrong, not what we did right. We don't hold on to the positive things. We talked about watching news on TV, you know, and media feeds into this every day. The bad stuff. We're looking up the bad stuff. We're not remembering, you know, the good, happy story that we saw on the news, which we should. You know, there's a lot of goodness out there, but sometimes it's hard to find. But we need to do that. I guess the last tip that I remember from last night, and that is crucial, is connection. You know, buddy system. Who's your buddy? Is it your spouse? Is it a good friend? Is it your mom or dad? Is it a neighbor? Is it a coworker? We need to talk. We are meant to be beings of connection. So, you know, whatever's going on in your life, hopefully that, you know, it's a fleeting moment. And I'm not saying there's not something more severe that people are dealing with, because there certainly is. But, you know, when you're feeling really down, and actually the reverse, happiness can be fleeting. You can feel it at that moment, but it doesn't mean it's going to stick to you forever. So you really have to keep searching it, not identify with the negative things that have happened. Process it, deal with it, but, you know, look toward hope. And that is my recap of last night, and we hope that we can see you at future meetings. And if there's a topic you'd like to hear about, Jay and I would love to know, and maybe we can make that happen. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay warm.